I hope you guys have a wonderful lunch, and thank you for showing up. Um, Today, my talk is going to be about the tale of the two clouds from Pacific Life. And the presenter, my name is Trang Do. I'm a senior data engineer at Pacific Life. And this is Jacob Emerson. He's also a data engineer from Pacific Life. So a little bit introduction about Pacific Life. Our company is a long-standing history of over 150 years, providing financial services. We provide a wide range of insurance, life insurance, annuities, reinsurance, group insurance, and mutual funds. And we have a diversity of customers. So here's just a quick synopsis of the tale of the two cities, because this is the premise of our presentation is all about. So I'm not gonna go over the setting, the plot and all, but just remember the themes: resurrection, sacrifice, and revolution. So that's just the gist of what this slide's about. So here's our agenda for today. Why do we choose a new family name? Our journey of refactoring, our lesson learned, next steps, and our questions. So here is choosing a family name. So the family name we're talking about here is DBT. So it was the best of time and it was the worst of time. When I started out with Pacific Life, it was about during that time, we already have Redshift and Informatica Cloud up and running. However, the reason why it was the best of time because it was up and running. But the worst of time is every night we have to worry about the SLA. Are we going to meet our SLA? Are we going to make it or not, right? So because of that, and at the same time, Snowflake was chosen as our enterprise data cloud. So Snowflake and DBT are tightly coupled together. And DBT was chosen to be the new transformation tool for us to refactor our code from Informatica into DBT. I think you guys hear all of this before already. Why do people pick DBT, right? Mostly because of the model, modularization of the code, SQL-based, embedded CI/CD deployment, built-in functionality, testing framework, self-generated data lineage, and documentation. So what we did, we picked two front-runner teams, one called Master Data Management and Customer Activity Platform. They are two separate teams, but they work very closely together. And I don't want to go too much into what the team's all about, but it's all about data, the master data of the information, and customer activity is transactional information. So here, this is our journey for refactoring. So this is where we know that we want to have to remove Informatica, replaced with a tool. So that's why the new city, DBT. So the very first thing that we did, and I thought this is a very, very good step for all teams that want to do the migration, we forced everyone to take the rapid onboarding session. These are hosted by DBT Lab. It's a 90-minute session, very intensive. It's spaced out over 6 weeks, and it's hands-on training. And our goal after this session is we actually did one conversion out of this training. Then enter the DBT revolution. So this is, remember, the keyword, revolution. This is the journey. This is the hardest part. So very first thing, you're going to have to identify and categorize all your legacy objects, by business function. You have to prioritize by complexity. You just have to, and then you pick, and you want to pick the simplest case for you to do the conversion. Once you prioritize it, then this is our how we implement, we design, we develop, test, and then we deploy it. It's just a cycle of each one of the functions. I'm not going to read out all of these steps, but of course, the design part is breaking down the complex SQLs are the most difficult, the longest time consuming. Then once we've done that part, then we have to develop and test, refactoring the code, and then we do the comparison. Once we've done that, and we just parallel test, and then we just remove the old code, replace with the new code. It's almost like a seamless transition. So with all of that, when we complete our conversion, this is the time saving that we save. Overall, we save 50% of our performance. And I want to make sure that it's because Snowflake is faster than Redshift, but also because we break down the SQLs, we have the opportunity to rewrite some of the code, right? You know how old code sit on another set of bad code, and because of that, DBT, because we enforce the breaking up of the SQL. So this is the time saving that we have. With that, I'm going to let Jacob to have a recap of our success.
All right, thank you, Trang. So one of the questions that I imagine everyone would have after Trang explains the story is, hey, Jacob, how does this necessarily apply to my data stack? How does this apply to my team? What were the team sizes that you were dealing with? What were some of the actual metrics that went behind this? So this next slide kind of goes into the whole process. The overall journey took about a year and 9 months, roughly about 2 years-ish, on 2 teams, both around that 8 to 15 range of developers. So probably a little bit of other recaps. Trang mentioned the 53% time savings. We had a little bit of other metrics in the next slide that we'll go over, but one of the ones I'll point out right now is that there was a resolution time decrease from 2 weeks down to 2 hours. And that was in part due to the modularization helping us figure out where each of the where errors could be at a very granular level, as opposed to it just looking through 1,500 line SQL breakdown of making 15 temporary tables. For model counts, we went from about 120 Informatica mappings in each of the teams to about 750 DBT models. Not necessarily a one-to-one conversion. If you have the same amount of mappings in Informatica, you're not necessarily going to hit 750. These are just the numbers that we hit. But the main benefit that we saw was now that we have 750 different objects that we can look to, when we're actually trying to figure out any sort of data errors, or even then, if we have a specific data set that we're looking for, where in the lineage can we look for it? And we can just say, oh, it's right there. So I'm just going to pull from that and make more downstream models. Some other successes, and on the topic of cost optimization that was brought up at the keynote, 47% savings from our total cost of ownership between both Informatica and Redshift moving into DBT and Snowflake. For reference, we are DBT Cloud and DBT Core users here at Pacific Life, so there was a little bit of both going into that. The operational time save I mentioned on the last slide there, so I won't go into that. But all of this was enabled by what we mentioned before in the earlier slides, the lineage, the modularization, built-in testing, and we also saw a lot of other improvements in different areas. I won't go into them right now because I can see people are already taking pictures, and that leaves more time for Q&A, which I think that's great. Outside of recap, we learned a lot through the two-year process, and if we had to do it all over again, there would be a lot of things that we would want to do. So instead of this saying the lessons that we learned, because we're probably not going to have to migrate over into DBT again, these are the lessons that all of you guys should take away. Kind of like how, if we're going back to the French Revolution for A Tale of Two Cities, maybe we shouldn't be guillotining a lot of people. We should be focused on guillotining our costs. If I had to limit our key factors for success to 2 different things, the first one would be slowing down, and the second one would be staying intentional with what we want to do. Now, high level, those are just 4 words, but I'll get into what those necessarily mean. Slowing down and staying intentional are our way to make sure that every change and every piece of refactoring we're doing is for a reason, and it's all in the name of improving our data stack, improving our transformations, and making sure that our mean times to fix data issues are improved, and and our data times to actually get things to end users are also improved. I said improved a lot there. First way we did this was utilizing all the DBT features that we could, splitting this into 2 sections over here. The first section is going to be more focused on actual developers, our engineers, and that's going to be mainly for tests and packages, which both provide a whole suite of tools that allow us to perform our data checks, whether it be unit testing, just looking at not nulls, all the way to complex end-to-end testing to make sure that our business rules were applied correctly. And on the packages side, there's a lot of different things that people have already made. DBT open source allows for other packages to come in through their package hub. And there's a lot of different packages that we started utilizing for more tests, actually auditing our projects to make sure we're going onto the right page, telemetry onto what we're actually doing when we're running our indications, so we can have all of those metrics into one place. On the stakeholder side, DBT Explore and documentation has been paramount to our transformation. Now, I could have Trang go and explain this, but she's going to take the entire time doing this because it has been a wonder for her team to go through it. An example I can give is when we gave our business users an example of the DBT Explorer that we had for their conversions, they immediately looked into our transformations and they looked into one of our models specifically and they said, hey, is that supposed to be calculated like that? And we had to look and we realized, no, it actually was supposed to be different. So we were able to fix that within, 30 minutes?
An hour.
An hour? Whereas beforehand, we wouldn't have even seen that issue because it would have just appeared as a data issue, then the ticket would have had to been sent in, then we had to look at the ticket. So the improvements just come from our business users actually looking into our transformations and saying, hey, this doesn't look right.
But I do want to comment that nowadays, right, business users, they very technical savvy. They're not just business user. They can read SQL, they can write SQL. So if you have the code not too complex, if you modularize correctly, the communication with business user is golden.
Switching from DBT features to more of a people focus, controls have been sort of the way that we've been able to stay intentional with at least the changes that we want to make as people. Naturally, we hear, oh, let's migrate to a better stack to all of these different improvements and benefits, and we're going to think, oh, let's just run at 1,000,000 miles an hour and get to it. Not necessarily the case because at least the slowing down portion of it, we learned a lot about the different DBT features, as mentioned on the last slide, because we didn't immediately bring everything over at once. So one of the things that we did, I mentioned earlier that we're DBT Cloud customers. So DBT Cloud has a suite of permission sets that you can set onto your users and set up a role-based access control model for your tenants. And we were able to use that to assign different levels for users to focus on model creation, job creation, orchestration, and it allowed us to kind of get all those controls in. So we don't necessarily say, oh, this worked in dev, let's immediately run it in production, because that works all the time, right? The second thing we did is we created a pull request template, and DBT itself has a has a pull request template that they use on their documentation site. We kind of changed it. The purpose of it being that whenever a pull request is made into main or master, we can actually document out why the changes were made, what's the lineage looking like now, and trace that back over into a ticket. That way, in a year from now, when we have different team members, or we don't remember what was happening a year ago because we have 15 million tickets processing at any given time, that we can go and we can say, hey, why was this change made? And was this change appropriate for the time? Or we can even look and say, hey, You said that you were changing model Y. Why is model X changing? So this is our journey as is. So the next question for us that we've actually been internally discussing right now, even while we're at the conference, shout out to the front row, fellow Pacific Life. It's what's TBD for DBT at Pacific Life? And for us, it's a couple of things. So the first thing is fully adopt DBT Mesh. It was mentioned at the keynote earlier that DBT Mesh is expanding out to not only be cross projects, so our different work streams coming together, but also including different platforms. So we have some users that could be working in Redshift or Oracle that might want to transfer data all over into us. And I understand Oracle was not listed as one of their connectors. But we now have the ability to start scaling up those teams and trying to get everything interconnected. So it's a lot easier for us to ingest their models and provide that documentation cross-project so no one has to stand up their own sources based on an upstream team. The second thing is, in the spirit of one DBT, is to formalize our hybrid approach between how DBT Cloud and DBT Core is implemented within the enterprise. There's a lot of different cases that we can have for DBT Cloud, and there's a lot of different cases that we can have for Core. So we're trying to figure out what the balance is between all of that and trying to figure out who needs what, why do we need what, and what's the benefit of both. And the last thing is DBT is not fully adopted into the enterprise yet. As mentioned before, the front-runner teams are only 2, and they just finished about 3 months ago. So we're now slowly trying to onboard the rest of the data teams into the DBT framework and using what we learned from our past to help them with their journeys. I'd like to thank everyone for coming up to this presentation. We can have Q&A right after this announcement. We'll be lurking in the Slack. If anyone wants to connect with us on LinkedIn, feel free to ask us after the talk. And yeah, with that said, who has any questions for us?
Okay, I have one word, cost saving. No, oh, wait, that's two.
Well, that's 2. That's a phrase.
No, Informatica, okay, I'm not supposed to say, but you know, Informatica is more expensive than DBT. A lot more, so that's cost saving. And it's older technology. Informatica is mostly ETL. As for the modern, right, we ELT. We extract and then we load, right? ELT, yeah, transformation. And performance-wise, okay, it depends also your targeted database too. If you use Snowflake, are you planning to use Snowflake, Redshift? It have to be cloud. It's a cloud base, right?
Can you quantify the cost savings that you were able to realize?
We did. We can't tell you how much. We saved about 47% for a team of 20 people.
And have you completely gotten rid of Informatica?
Out.
Question what?
I haven't seen it, so I was assuming it was
No, we completely removed everything, and we have another team still hanging on to that, but that by the end of next year, that team must all be out. But that's not the 2 teams that we talk about, yeah. If I understand you correctly, we use, so DBT have the DBT test, right? So we create tons and tons of test cases to do the validation, if I understand your question correctly. The couple things, right? You're going to have to provide enough testing evidence to support your cases. And for DBT Explorer, because of the data lineage, you can show to them, okay, here is where's the data coming from. This is the type of transformation. And remember, you don't want your SQL to be complex because otherwise you will lose that you can show it, right? And you say, this is your code, because even within Excel, right, they have to create some sort of formula correctly, right? So somehow you have to show to them the information they can actually access and say, this is my formula compared to yours. And there's multiple ways for you to show it. Is that what you're saying? You know, Excel, I mean, I don't think you can get people away from Excel, right? But if you show to them a common models that have a common formula that you can that can they can feel comfortable with the result set.
Do we expose the testing results to the users?
We can expose the test cases, and in some cases, if I think some of your other project, you can also expose the test result.
I think on the slide you mentioned formalize the cloud and the core strategy. What is currently the process between those two teams, entities? How does that align?
We had, so when we first started adopting DBT, we had what we presented on for this presentation more on the DBT cloud users with the 2 pilot teams that we had. There were separate efforts happening at the same time where we had teams onboarding DBT core. And what we're finding now is we have users on core, users on cloud. We want to combine the teams because of the new cloud features, DBT Mesh, explore everything in one centralized location instead of having us look for some of our cloud documentation on DBT Explorer, but the core documentation has to exist on some S3 hosted website somewhere. So that was the situation going into it, and so there's a combination of combining those 2 teams together, and there's also a case of what was mentioned at the keynote as well, a kind of difference between, hey, not everyone has to be in cloud, there's reasons for core, and whether that be for cost reasons or whether that be for actual usage reasons, then we're all trying to figure out what are the use cases for the 2 different, or for the 2 different offerings.
I'm thinking that when you start out with your conversion, you got, for me, my personal opinion, you want everyone to be on the cloud, so then it's a quick, because everyone can share code, that you can see code, the lineage is available immediately. So once it's in the steady mode, the maintenance mode, core there's no reason you can't use core because you just check out the code, right? You should be able to modify that little model instead of the whole process, check back in and run the process. So core to me can still exist. And besides, not everyone that made out to work with core. I hate core. I can't do it. I gotta see my results. No, when I make a change, I want to see my data lineage immediately. It's very difficult to imagine things. So that's what I'm saying. I think there's some true Python developers that love dig in the code, and you won't take that away from them. You can't. So, but core seems to be the solution for most of data engineer. Correct me if I'm wrong.
They're both popular.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Any other questions? Yeah.
Continue. Since you're an insurance company, I imagine you have a lot of legislation on how you calculate premiums and losses and so forth. Are you considering moving your core financial metrics operations at some future roadmap, or is that how does those SOX compliance pipelines? How's that in the roadmap?
Not sure we have one yet, but to be honest, our the data team is recently formed to more centralized. So now we have a centralized data governance team, and they're gonna have to come up with some certain rule sets. Based on that rule set, then you can create some sort of common models. But right now we don't. But I'm sure that other people can do that.